the FNL Network talk show.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the FNL Talk Show, joined by two beauties. I got Kat, Eugenia. How you doing tonight?
Really good. Really, really good. Happy to be outside. It's raining outside, so yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how have you had any flooding by where you are, ladies? Because I know California, they've been reporting on the news, lots of issues with flooding.
We've been super lucky in LA. There has been some mudslides. There has been a couple of sinkholes, but where I am, it's been great. So it kind of feels a lot like home. It feels like being in the UK right now. But yeah, we have had some issues, but compared with the rest of California, I know in like Ventura County, they've had issues. Most of it's been up north, I think, and on the coast. So I count myself very lucky, definitely.
Good. Well, fingers crossed. What about you, Eugenia? Are you back in West Hollywood or are you on the road again?
I'm in my closet almost. It does remind me of UK. That's true. It feels very nostalgic, this weather. I feel like I haven't left UK yet. But yeah, it's really strange. You know, I don't recall having weather like this in a long time. I mean, of course, Los Angeles needs rain. So looking at the positive side, it's a good thing to have rain in the desert, but we do have mudslides a lot in the backyard and things like that. So, you know, just trying to stay careful. And on a also good note, it's nice to stay inside and, you know, enjoy your books or whatever you do. It's kind of good not to be in a rush in that sense.
It's definitely cozy weather.
Yeah.
Cozy's good, but I remember one time and they literally would not take the plane off the runway in LA due to rain. And in my mind, I'm like, if you can't fly in rain, how can I trust you the rest of the trip? You know, now maybe like somebody just misspoke. I mean, I don't know if that's ever happened to you or not, but to me, it was like just the craziest thing that rain could delay a flight. And so like we're delayed for like hours until I guess the rain slowed down or whatever even happened. I don't remember at this point, but I do remember it was a rain delay why we weren't taking off. And I was just like, what if they hit snow somewhere? Like I just couldn't figure it out.
It's so true. I can't understand that, you know, coming from like Russia, third world country, we have so much snow, like, and you go no matter what, you go on a plane, you go on a car ride, like there's nothing stops. And actually the cleaning system is really kind of professional. Like here, I feel they haven't figured it out. Yeah, there's one drop of rain and the whole ecosystem is stopped. Come on, guys, the governors, anybody out there, please figure it out. We need some upgrades, you know, in the weather department.
It's definitely true. I mean, we're so not used to it here in LA. And I know my brother's a pilot in London. And when we get snow, it comes to a standstill. Like Heathrow can't cope, our airports can't cope because the staff aren't used to dealing with it. And they just deal with it so much slower than New York or Canada or Russia or anywhere else does. And so, yeah, we have massive delays when there's snow in the UK, but LA, people can't drive in the rain. They hibernate in their houses. They don't want to go outside. Most people don't have umbrellas. And yeah, as you know, the airports don't work. So it's delay, delay, delay.
Yeah, to me, I don't know, putting my life in your hands if you're afraid of rain now makes me question. I'm just saying. And then the other craziest thing that had happened, often I'll do speeches and MC and events, public talking, etc. So anyhow, I was doing a trade show in Washington, D.C., and we had a bad snowstorm. Well, meanwhile, it was the same snowstorm on the entire East Coast. So nothing shut down in Philly, nothing shut down in New York City. Washington, D.C., where like all of our representatives are, couldn't figure out how to deal with snow. So they shut down the whole public transportation system. That shut down all the businesses because now you have no workers who can go to the convention center to like serve the people, turn on the lights, to run the restrooms, etc. So everything was closed for like 3 or 4 days due to a snowstorm. And that's in the city that is running the country. Again, takes away my faith. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah,
I thought, sorry, you guys.
No, go ahead. Yeah, I was passionate about like, oh my God, I'm so with you on that. Like, I just can't understand the intelligence behind it. Like people who run the country, and if, you know, you don't pay attention to the small details, like how are you going to do the other things? Like what will happen if there's zombie apocalypse or whatever, however you call it? Like in LA, there's suddenly so many cars and there's all this parking is really bad in the hills, for example. And the way people drive is just a disaster. And I was stuck in a traffic for like an hour, just not moving, just because people couldn't, coordinate. And of course you start getting angry and like, it's not good.
No, for sure. I was going to say, I thought DC was wintry.
They get snow. I mean, now granted, it might have been more than normal, like a foot, but what, shut down for days? Like you don't have any plows? You can't figure this out? You don't have anybody who can, physically remove the snow? You can't get your public transportation up? I mean, to me, I'm just like, it just is a horrible representation of our representation of the country,
So much passion about weather. We were skiing at Deer Valley for the holidays and we were supposed to have dinner and it said by Uber like 15 minutes. So the hotel car is like, sure, we'll take you, very fancy. It took us 4 hours to get to dinner, you guys. 4 hours.
You made it in time for breakfast. Wow.
Snow.
You could have literally gone hunting and, found your own dinner, found your own fish and prepared it and gone foraging for mushrooms or whatever. That's crazy.
It was.
Wow. Was it a good dinner? I need to know, was it a good dinner at least?
It was decent. At that point, your mind will make it anything to be a good dinner. So I was like, and the driver was like, okay, well, it's still another mile. Like, are you sure you want to go? Because maybe your reservation is canceled. I'm like, are you kidding me? Another 4 hours back? It's like,
good point.
Yes.
How long did it take to get back? Was it bad coming back or no?
It was better. It was better. It just sometimes I feel in US, you're right. Like when something happens, there's a tiny bit of snow, a snowstorm, like everything just shuts down, like due to, unpreparedness, I would say.
Well, talking about incompetence, as you may have heard on the news or what have you, I mean, years ago, it all started, I remember, Hillary's emails. And then after all this whole trial where they had the woman there for days, I think it turned out there was one form about one bomber plane that maybe would have been bad if it got out. Everything else was irrelevant, but it still was careless. And I guess, it was on her personal server. It wasn't where documents should have been, et cetera, et cetera. Were things deleted? Were they not? I don't know. I wasn't there. And then it moves forward, recently. And I didn't realize, they said the reason it made the news is because he sued and made a big deal, Trump and Mar-a-Lago. So boxes and boxes of confidential documents, were found and they took photos and, highest level of security and everybody's condemning it, who's a Democrat. But now it turns out it's up to like 20 documents that may have been found in Biden's residencies. So what I don't get, I mean, I'm sure, most people, are afraid of celebrity. They're afraid of people in power. So maybe people don't question, a president, a vice president, a secretary of state. But clearly, these documents are being mishandled. And if somebody, wanted to make money, like sell information to Russia, like maybe a Trump, if you have these documents, you could. And yes, I do pick teams and sides, but now I'm like, okay, Biden was around for Hillary, he should know better. Even the fact that like, even though it's private, Monica and Bill's like back and forth was wiped from her computer, but clearly nothing's ever wiped. They were able to find it. So, I mean, really, to me, you don't keep things in writing that especially are top secret. They're idiots. Like, what is going on? And do you think there is a difference between like Biden's less documents and Trump's more documents, or it's equally as bad? What do you ladies have to think about the topic?
I'm going to say, wherever there's power, there is corruption. And it doesn't matter if you're a celebrity, if you're Prime Minister in the UK, if you're the King of England, wherever there is power, there's some kind of corruption. And it's just been shown through Prince Harry's book Spare that the royal family actually sell stories on each other. And I know that celebrities sell stories too. So I think stuff that gets out there, a lot of it's planted. I'm going to say that these people in power, they are careless. They probably are a bit egotistical. And they believe they can never get caught for doing the wrong thing. I mean, we look at Trump. Trump is an individual who's a little bit deluded about how powerful he actually was. And he's now being taken down. But I think people are very careless. And I think where there is greed, where there is power, people do things that they should not necessarily do. So these documents have been taken home or whatever, stored in places they shouldn't have been stored. It probably is a case of just thinking that they can never be taken down. They are top dog, you know what I mean? And even before they were top dog, they were people of such high levels of power that they feel untouchable. They kind of feel that there's a hierarchy in life, and I'm going to say they are the human gods, if you know what I mean. They're the people that are running the country, that they aren't doing anything illegal. That's what I think they think they're doing. I think there's a lot of stupidity involved, but we're only human beings. We do stuff, you know. Perhaps in his thinking room, Biden was going through documents to, you know, reassess things. I don't know. There's got to be a reason you've got those documents. Were you doing it to blackmail somebody? Were you doing it because you don't want these documents to be seen? Were you doing it because you've done something wrong? Why do you have these documents? That's a question that needs to be answered. And until we know what these documents are, you can't answer why these people have kept these documents. Why aren't they where they should be, you know, locked away in the files with all the confidential documents? I just think where there's power, there's corruption. And, you know, it's like if we go to celebrity, there's a lot of backstabbing too. People if you're working for a celebrity, you can throw them under the bus in some ways to make money. I think, you know, were some of these documents planted? That's a question we have to ask. Is somebody tipping off the press to make money? There's so many and so much about the story we don't know. And, you know, why were Hillary's emails leaked? Who leaked them? Is it an internal sabotage? There's just so many different questions in my head. I mean, I don't know enough about what's been going on. I know that documents have been leaked and everything like that, but I would like more answers. I would like to know what these documents were. I'd like to know who leaked them. I mean, I know Trump's got hundreds of them, so whatever Trump was doing was probably highly illegal. But why has Biden got them? But at least Biden, from what I understand, he's helping the government and he's got his lawyers involved to give over documents and everything else. I know Trump was not so giving in that respect. I don't know much about the Hillary era of it, but there's just, in my mind, there's just so many unanswered questions as to why. Why have you got these? Is there sabotage? Is it something you've done to keep yourself in the top office in the country, you know? Why? Just, that's my question. Why?
Well, I don't even know. Is it just hubris? You know, could they just feel like rules don't apply? And then, you know, years go by, because I don't know if all the documents were from him being vice president or not. To the best of my knowledge, I believe so with Biden. You know, did he just forget about it? I mean, now granted, that's not really an excuse, because somebody else should be paying attention, or there should be a checks and balances system where, you know, why are you allowed to leave or take those documents to your own personal residence? I have no idea. You know, I mean, and now today I'm reading something like John Kelly was saying that, you know, Trump would share classified information at dinner meetings with people. Who knows? I mean, you know, but then again, you know, he thought maybe he had the dish, and so he looks like the big guy by knowing this stuff, but in the wrong hands. How sensitive is any of the material? Again, we don't know that. Like you said, Kat, we don't know exactly what's in any of these, you know, documents.
So where are the classified documents meant to be kept? In the White House? Where are they meant to be kept? As a British person, I don't actually know where the classified documents are meant to be kept legally.
They're not supposed to be taken to like private residence, even if it's at the White House. So they're, you know, supposed to be in certain areas of the White House. But I agree with everything that you said. I personally think this should be a reality show and a camera on each president and every person in power, so we know exactly what they're doing at all times. Like, you know, just disclose everything, because it's true. There's so many questions. And I so agree with what you guys said. You know, I was listening on the way here to Kevin Hart talking on the podcast about the biggest drug ever actually is not, you know, like anything else but fame. Fame is the biggest drug, because once you're there, you feel invincible, you know, like everything is open to you. And once you don't have that drug, you'll do everything to get back to it. And that was his experience. Obviously, you know, he speaks from personal perspective. And I agree with that. You know, once you have that that ability to dictate and tell people what to do, not only you become more relaxed and careless, but also you think that rules don't apply to you. And I've seen that a lot happen, both in Hollywood and being around politicians. Only if I can share the stories I know.
Do it! Come on, what could go wrong?
Gossip, come on.
No, I know, for example, that Trump, he was with William Morris, this big agency in Los Angeles. And the first thing, after the election, he calls agent Ari Emanuel, who's an amazing agent, and Trump is on the phone, and who's your best client now? So it's like so intertwined between the power, the politics, the games people play to get the power and the politics. That's like big questions of, of life. But I think, honestly, as I researched, I think there's no such a system to train to protect these documents, even though I would think now with like COVID and the tracking systems, like we should be able to track the most important documents that are classified, not only people. So I don't understand that. Like people should just upgrade the system, the way you track the documents, and, because it does present a lot of dangers to individuals and countries.
It seems that wherever you are in the world, there's people of power doing things they shouldn't. I mean, I just think of South Africa, and obviously, as you guys know, I lived in Cape Town. President Zuma, he did so much wrong. He was the most corrupt president known to man, and all his misdemeanors finally got outed. But, it just seems that wherever you are in the world, whether or not you're in the UK, and I know that our political system is full of corruption. I mean, we had Boris Johnson basically got thrown out, and it was all, his own party threw him out. And then we had Liz Truss, her party threw her out because she was no good at the job. But, there's so much leaking, there's so much backstabbing, there's so much sabotage, there's so much desperation to get to the top job that people do stuff, and then the people that know about it within the party can use that information to blackmail. It just seems just like the whole thing is just one cauldron full of sabotage and greed and misdemeanors, and just to stay in the top position. And kind of is a little bit the same in the celebrity world too, but I think it's global. I think it's not just America. I think the fact that we've got it in the news at the moment because of Biden, and obviously the Trump stuff still going on, makes it, very relevant to America now. But this stuff's happening everywhere, and it seems that every country, every person in power has done something, and it always seems to come to the surface eventually.
I think it's a little bit better than like medieval England. I just came back from England and researching how many people were beheaded and the whole court of like Henry, how many wives he killed. That was like, oh my God. And, the Tower of London, just knowing the power in that time and how much laws there were. I think still we live in a more progressive world, and maybe thank God to like social media and things, you can't hide as much things as, it has both sides. So you can discover things much easier.
We also have hacking and stuff like that. I mean, we have genius people in that hack computers. They hack computers that supposedly are unhackable, so they can get into the White House computer, they can get into the British government computers, and they can find out the information. I mean, we have the most amazing hackers out there right now, and it just makes, there is nothing that cannot be found out. And a news outlet is prepared to pay for stories on the royal family, and like we found out in the last couple of weeks through Prince Harry, the royal family sell stories on each other, they sabotage each other, because it's all about the top dogs in the royal family staying in the limelight, and they'll do whatever it takes. I just think the whole world is a little bit corrupt, and it's who we are. And then the media loves it because they make money out of it, and so they will actually pay somebody to find out about stuff. It's, I'm going to say, the modern world is very interesting one. Very interesting.
Talking about hackers, I don't know if you caught it. It was like a little snippet on the news, and luckily it was around the 11th, because yes, I got back from visiting my mom in Florida on the 10th. And so anyhow, it was the next day. in the morning, all flights were suspended for like a few hours. And then because of that, many flights were canceled. So now it wasn't the weather, like the big Southwest scandal. Supposedly they said there was something with the system where they had to reboot it, and it took longer than they expected. That doesn't sound right. Now, most flights end like, they take off at 11 or midnight or whatever. So after that, usually on the US time, you don't have anything going until 6 a.m. the next day. So if you're going to reboot a system, why the heck wouldn't you do it after the last flight's out of the airport? Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, oh, let's wait till the morning flight and we're going to reboot it then. At the same time, supposedly us, Russia, China, we can hack each other's grids if we want to. So we could go in, shut off everybody's lights, like kind of, what Russia's now, against Ukraine. And now we're helping Ukraine. Russia said they would retaliate. Do we think there's something they're not sharing about the planes not going, or was it a reboot? I think there's something fishy.
Yeah. I'm going to say they might have actually hacked into the systems that actually help fly the plane and therefore it would be dangerous to take off. Because as we know, like once you're up in the air, kind of a machine takes over and flies the plane, and the pilots kind of sit there and have their cup of tea or whatever else they do. I mean, my brother actually said, my job is like driving a bus, but I have less to do. And that's what he said about being the captain of a British aircraft. And he says, the takeoff, the landing, obviously they have to do all the checks of all the dashboard and stuff. But he's like, once they're up there and the plane is on its, basically being programmed by a computer, there's not so much to do. They have to log some stuff and that's about it. I'm sure there's more to it than that. But he said that, there's more to do if you're a bus driver. So perhaps it's something to do with the actual computer that is flying the plane, and therefore it would be dangerous to take off. I don't know. It's a theory. It's a theory.
What about you, Eugenia? What about your inside scoop? What did you hear on this one?
I mean, after Kat explained it, I think I can drive a bus, so why not drive a plane, right? Just like, okay, you made it sound so easy. Like, let's go. No, actually, no. I mean, I agree. I wouldn't trust the computer. I don't drive a Tesla. I don't know how about you guys. I was intrigued with Elon Musk just came out and nobody knew about him. I was like, well, I want to check it. But I don't trust this car's crash. Like there were a few reports of crashes. And then I remember like my he's driving Tesla and his car wouldn't start because it was overheated in Malibu. And I'm like, how can you trust the computer? I can't trust myself sometimes. Forget it. Like a computer is even more. I don't trust Alexa. It's better to honestly rely on yourself. But I do think it's something fishy. There was maybe some kind of hacking, because I noticed, especially being Russian, unfortunately, a lot of times we were hacked during the war. Like all of my accounts were hacked. I recovered some of my social media and Facebook is still hacked, but they were targeting people who are involved in the war for some reason, because there's a lot of help for refugees. There's a lot of donations, the links that you click. And yeah, we were targeted in that time. So the world is not as easy and peaceful, and, it's very complicated, much more than we know, I think.
Well, you know who I don't trust is this George Santos, who made it into Congress, even though he lied about everything. And now look, you're running for office. You didn't graduate college. I understand maybe lying about that. You want to pretend you're athletic and say you were a star volleyball player, even though now you're a little chub-a-dub. Okay, fine, lie about that. But like some of what he said is like, to me, beyond sick. Like, I don't even think it would get you votes. Like he said he had employed people who survived the Pulse nightclub shooting, now granted, he said he's gay as well. Who knows? Everything else he said is a lie, so I can't take anything for truth. He said his mom died due to 9/11. That's supposedly not true. He's not Jewish, yet he said he had grandparents who died in the Holocaust. Like these really far out things, like he's like 7 made-for-TV movies. But now talking about like, credibility, checkability, accountability, nobody at the GOP, checked to see that every single thing he was saying was lies. And his opponent, who did research on him, like didn't decide that all these lies were necessary to mention. I think there was one little thing that they were like, oh, well, he didn't say this, instead of the slew of things that he was like lying about. So to me, he could be like a sociopath serial killer, because I mean, it's such an extreme amount and he's continuing to lie. Like, he's been interviewed. He didn't go to the college he was just interviewed on. He's like, oh, I'm not in trouble anywhere. He's in trouble in Brazil. Like, it just never ends. And now you're going to give him access to documents and classified information, potentially, if he were, serves 2 years, in the House. What say you? Like, to me, this man should not be there. And I can't believe that nobody did their job to check, whether both parties and the media, they all failed in my book.
Well, it's sickening. It's definitely mental illness. Like, it's not, not a person who has empathy. I mean, lying about the death of your mother and the Holocaust, like, these are serious issues. But you know what? Sometimes these politicians are puppets. And I know in entertainment and politics, any press is better than no press, even the bad press. So there are probably people who are behind him that he even got that far. He got away with a lot being at where he is. So there's probably somebody who, who wants him, push him forward in that sense. And maybe, a person with mental illness, it does sell newspapers and news and anything else. So there's definitely an agenda, I think, and much more to that. I think it's terrible to promote psychopath and narcissists in our society. Like, I don't want my kids to know about that. I don't want them to read this news and think that you can get away with anything. It's like, how much more can you go? But, just the fact that he's not in some facility being treated for lying or whatever, whatever is the mental condition, and being out there, in political arena, it just tells me a lot that there are some kind of alternative things that are happening behind his back.
Well, I'm surprised the guy's not in jail, because from what I've read, he has committed fraud. And obviously he's done all this lying. I mean, I know that he didn't go to Horace Mann upper school, and he said he went there. I think it's a very prestigious school in the Bronx. He didn't go there. He didn't go to his grad school that he said he went to. Apparently when he was in Brazil, he wrote checks which he pocketed or something. There was some kind of theft of money. I think it was $700 that I read. And I know that he funded his campaign via, there was investment firms that he was working for or something, and they made all this money. But where was this money? Did he cipher it off and use it for the campaign? Where did his campaign money come from? I mean, I think the guy's really fraudulent from everything that I read. And guaranteed, I'm not in New York. I don't know a huge amount about him, but everything I've read, he just seems to be a lying, deceitful, thieving person. I was going to swear, but I won't. And I just think if you can't trust somebody, and he's proved he's not trustworthy, you can't have him in office. You can't give him legal documents. How can he rule Congress or be part of Congress when he's not trustworthy? How do people actually believe in him? I just don't understand how he can get there. He's basically, as far as I can work out, siphoned money into a campaign and paid his way to get to Congress. I mean, it sounds a bit like the US presidential election, which is, a lot of it's about how much money you can get for your campaign, and how much publicity you can get. I just don't think you can trust this person at all. And like you said, Sean, it's like, how has he got so far without being found out? I mean, now he's part of Congress or whatever, and he just has a track record of being a lying, deceitful, disgusting human being. I mean, I read that he went to Catholic church, but yet he's saying he's Jewish. But then he's like, I'm not Jewish, I'm Jew-ish, Jew-ish, as in somewhere down the line had something to do with being a Jew, but isn't a Jew because he's Catholic. I'm like, how are the two together? You're not a Jew. Everything he says just seems to be trying to please somebody and not true. I just think you can't trust the guy. And how is he where he is? And how can he be part of Congress when he is just this not nice human. He's just deceitful scum from what I can see. And I'm sorry for calling anybody scum, but he seems to have done a lot of bad stuff. I mean, why lie about your school? It doesn't matter if you went to, you know, public school, private school, if you were a straight A student, it matters where you are now and who you are as a person. Why lie about going to Horace Mann, which is an elite school in the Bronx? Why lie about it? Is somebody going to like you more because you went there? You're going to have more respect because you had the money to go there? Or would you have more respect because you went to the public school down the road, which might not be, you know, is, you know, low income school? Why lie? Why lie? It's about who you are as a person. People are going to like, it's like, I like Sean. Am I going to like Sean if he lies about everything he does? Probably not. It's just, he's just.
Then I would be scum.
You will be scum.
I go from Swan to scum. You know.
I just want to say, I think this guy's a lying, deceiving piece of scum. That's my 2 cents worth.
Boom. I'll take
Boom.
it. Now, I don't know if you saw, talking about people who are a little bit mentally unstable or very mentally unstable, because I have such an exciting life. On Netflix, I recently watched The Axe-Wielding Hitchhiker. I don't know if you happen to see it or not, but essentially a local news station made a guy a temporary reality star where he was actually on Johnny Kimmel, I believe, afterwards. So essentially what the story was, homeless hitchhiker, early 20s, male, kind of talk like a surfer dude, was, I guess, getting a ride in a vehicle with a man and a couple other ladies. And so this man was supposedly attacking one of the women or both of the women. So to stop the attack, he happened to have an axe, because who doesn't travel with an axe? And he was like, yeah, so it smash, smash, smash on his head. And then because, you know, he protected the one woman who was like, oh yeah, he really did save me, everybody forgot that he put a hatchet into some man's head and was like, oh, this guy's a hero. And then flash forward years later, like it just shows, you know, as other media outlets are contacting him, trying to give him a reality show, that he's a bit unstable, he's unpredictable, and then ultimately accused of murdering a man in Jersey who he said tried to like rape or attack him. What's true, what's not, what's blurred, what's not. He says he was abused by his mother. She somewhat denies it. Again, it goes to my whole thing. I guess like the whole theme, really. Nobody stops the president or vice president from taking these documents. Nobody investigates who's running for their own parties. And nobody on the news is looking into like, you know, the mental or physical or any other history of this person before making them an axe-wielding celebrity. What do you think? Should somebody like this get accolades? Even if you help someone, if you put a hatchet in somebody's head, shouldn't that be looked into? Just curious.
Well, what I didn't like is that like Netflix didn't give him the money, because apparently, you know, they made this whole sensational documentary, which they started when he was a hero.
Oh.
And because he's accused, you know, of crime, they basically are not supposed even to pay him. So I think the way they profited from this documentary, and it's like so controversial and so sensational. Of course, it sells, everybody's curious to know about it, but the fact that they profited from that, that's not okay to start with. Like, I think our society just is not right and is sick in so many ways, because it comes to money and greed and, you know, attention, narcissism, all this kind of things. And, you know, unfortunately, all kind of mentally unstable people make it a good fit for television and reality TV. It's like a perfect combination where you don't know what to expect, and that's what you need. So I think it's terrible. I honestly think, you know, if he was mentally unstable in the beginning, it like doesn't change. You know, people show you who they are. Okay, maybe he saved the woman, like I'll give him credit, but to make him a star out of it and everybody jumps on that train, it's not okay. It's not.
I'm going to say a lot of the content that Netflix put out is based on what consumers want. And we love stuff. We love messed up people. We love things, murders. We love horrors. We love celebrity. And that is a combination of everything people love. People, they like people that have done bad things. I mean, how many shows have we got on Netflix that are like death row, and you hear like the death row stories, and these people are more or less glorified, you know, they're put on pedestals. We've had so many shows that have been about either cannibalism, murderers, people on death row, but they're not reality. They are actually shows that Netflix have made, you know, dramas, because people want that sort of thing. And I think it's the consumer helps elevate these people to celebrity status, because if the consumer didn't want that sort of material, Netflix wouldn't put it out. So I think a lot of it comes down to us, and it comes down to our thirst for gore, our thirst for evil, our thirst for celebrity. I mean, we love it. We eat it up. We like celebrities like Kanye West because he's crazy and he does all this SHIT stuff. We love it because there's drama there. And I think if everything was My Little Pony, Care Bear and Sweetness and Light, it would be really boring. And I think Netflix is just acting on the consumer. And I think, yeah, it's disgusting. It is disgusting to put all these people like Dahmer. There was that amazing show, and I love that show. But it was about a massive serial killer, but we loved it. It was one of the most watched shows on Netflix, and it's people like us that are giving them the fuel to make more shows like this, to make people like the axe murderer into these celebrities. If we didn't want that material, they wouldn't provide it. So it is. I think a lot of it comes down to us, and I think, yes, it is disgusting, but I think as humans we are a bit sick, and we love celebrity, we love gossip, we love horror, we love things like vampires. We like to explore a side of ourselves that, a dark side, because we're not going to go out there with an axe and the everyday person and kill somebody, but we kind of want to experience it, although we're not going to do it. And then the small percentage of people will be triggered by it, like the mass shooting people and all that sort of thing. But, the everyday Joe and Jane aren't going to react to it, but there is a small percentage who are going to go out there and kind of watch something and have a brainwave to do something themselves. So yeah, it is sick and it is dangerous. And like Eugenia said, if I had kids, I wouldn't want them to see this sort of thing. But it is down to us as the consumer, because we want it, and Netflix makes it.
Well, Eugenia, I have a question for you, like expanding upon this, because it made me think of like profiting and not profiting. It seemed to help, Anna Delvey, like with Inventing Anna on Netflix. Like she sold her story and she's like, you're so basic, Rachel. It's like, and it just, made everybody more interested in the case and her selling some artwork now. And honestly, I think really a lot of her going to jail was the fact that she didn't get the loan. Now, if she got the loan and the business was successful, maybe she would have created an empire. Who knows what would have happened? But from lying on the applications, now she went to jail and so forth, and then a whole big Netflix miniseries on it. What my question for you is, because she maybe made some money off of it or it helped her case, do you think in all cases the person it's about should profit, or it's just up to Netflix? Should it go to the victims, or where the money was taken? Say if it's Dahmer, should all proceeds have to be donated? What is your take on as far as entertainment that might be profiting on someone's story?
Well, absolutely, to the victims. I think at the very least you have to make it public and give back, because just profiting on somebody else, crime, whatever, misfortune, violence, anything, I just don't think it is moral. But it's my morals, like my morals are very different from everybody's else morals. And especially, I came from a country where everybody was equal, apparently, but people were still corrupt. So I think, it is a question for society, and I can't answer this question for everybody because everybody has different morals. And my therapist keeps saying, like, Eugenia, take off the pink glasses. Not everybody wants the best for everybody else. We humans are wired actually to self-survive in the first place. Don't think that everybody's going to be like, oh, I'm so kind and help everybody. We're wired like other species. The only reason we're kind to others, how she says, is because we need to procreate, because we need to keep this going. But other than that, don't think like, people will take care of themselves first most of the time. Of course, there are exceptions, of incredibly interesting personalities, but for me, that was a crazy story. I know a lot of people like that. I know what desperation can get you to. I understand, like, coming from nowhere and being around elite societies, like as a model, like you work, for example, and you wear those dresses, but they're not yours. You're just presented, and then you go home to your model's apartment with 5 girls, and something gets in your head, like, why these people have to have everything and I can't have this. So I think it's the desperation and really like thinking that it will bring you happiness and fulfill you in some way, all the money and the fame and the success. And of course it doesn't, but people do crazy stuff just to get to where they are. Like, I see this social climbing and blackmailing in Hollywood all the time, all the scandals, hypocrisy, yeah, like you name it. And you know what? I was kind of upset at Shonda Rhimes that she didn't put one Russian in that show. And I emailed her directly. I'm like, Shonda, like, what's up? Like, you making a show about Russians. There's no Russians. Not to say that the actor did an amazing job. I think it was fantastic. But at least, like, encourage diversity in Hollywood a little bit with being authentic. So I don't know. I think it's a discussion, to be thought about it. I personally don't like that she profits from her art. And I think you just become so narcissistic to the point they're like, okay, going to jail is amazing because it will get me more press. And then I can capitalize on making a film about me. And I'm sure that got her, in her head, because narcissists usually don't see anything and they kind of see themselves only. So I'm sure she thinks that she's done nothing wrong after she became so famous,
Well, talking about fame, one thing that this week brought, to my attention is how a lot of times, celebrity kids will have the same addictions or problems as their parents. I mean, I think a lot of it, is if you don't really, like Eugenia, you mentioned you're always working on yourself and trying to be the best mother you can, which sounds like a very healthy place to come from. But I'm assuming many people, we all have our issues. And if you have larger issues than others, if you're not at your best, you can't be the best parent. And I guess everybody's best can be at different strength levels at different times. So, Whitney, clearly had a drug addiction, issue, whether Bobby's to blame or whatever, who knows. And then her daughter wound up passing the same way she did. And now just this past week, Elvis died of a heart attack due to, drug abuse and whatever else he was doing at the age of 42. And now Lisa Marie joined her father at the age of 54. So to me, it's kind of like that whole Bible verse, the sins of the father will be passed on to the child. How do you avoid that? Like, do you think it's just because, the parents had such toxicity that there was no way to avoid it? I mean, to me, it just seems very ironic that you would even choose to, like, in death with like Bobby Christina, to purposely emulate the way your mother died. I mean, maybe it was a tribute in her mind, but to me, it just is extra disturbing for whatever reason. What are your thoughts?
I think that a lot of things like addiction, it's hereditary. There's certain, for example, in my family, we lack serotonin in the brain. My mum was you would have called it a manic depressive back then, bipolar. My sister's the same. I also have a lack of serotonin. My mum had her addiction, which was work. My sister's a heroin addict. As we all know, I had my eating disorders. It's all an addiction. And I think that if your father's got a problem, whether or not it's alcoholism, drug addiction, that gene has a strong chance of being passed down to the offspring. So I think a lot of that, I think the fact that different celebrities died the same way, if there is drugs in the house, and as a celebrity, I'm going to say sometimes the lifestyle is glorified. The everyday folk might end up in rehab. A celebrity is enabled more than the average everyday folk, and I think if it's there and it's glorified and drug use is maybe put on a pedestal, then someone already with the addiction gene is more likely to try it and try and live the same lifestyle. And we all know Hollywood modeling that drugs, alcohol, it flows freely. And I think the danger is if you have an addictive personality, that stuff is readily out there. The fact that certain celebrities have died in the same way from a heart attack, again, it could be genetic, it could be that there's a health issue within the family. Perhaps they have a heart issue that we didn't know about that runs down the family line. I think we all I do think genes play such a big part in it, is what I'm trying to say, very badly. But yeah, I think there's a lot more to it than that. I think it is, a lot of it is genes, genetics. So.
Could be. I mean, looking at the Golden Globe footage of Lisa Marie, it seemed like she was on something. Like, I don't know if it was prescription or like not feeling well because she'd been asked to hold the guy she was with. I don't know who he was, but maybe I should. But anyhow, so she wasn't at her best for whatever reason. And then a couple of days later, she passed. What is your take on all this, Eugenia?
Well, I was in Cannes actually, and Priscilla was there for the Elvis movie, and watching it, like, got a trigger in me, because besides what Kat said, that of course it's genetic and things like that, there's also a part, like it's medicating some kind of pain, and sometimes people who are behind the machine of like a big star celebrity or what's the brand, they don't want to deal with what is underneath, and they kind of they will run you like a dog. Like, look at Amy Winehouse, Britney Spears, and it is celebrated, it is glorified, it's shown in all the movies, but there's a sadness to it, because these people have real struggles. They're amazing artists, and there's pain that's not addressed underneath it. There's no communication, there's no like mental health specialists, there's no people who would tell them to stop and reassess what's important. A lot of times you live in an illusion. A lot of times if you were born into such a famous family that you don't truly know, who you are in a way. You're always like attached to being a daughter of somebody. And it's a big burden to carry. Like, I know a lot of kids of celebrities, they go straight to drugs because they just don't have that identity, and they have to always like stand up to what their parents do. So it's definitely very sad. I think it runs in the Kennedy family as well. I notice it, and a lot of times there are people who are very sensitive artists, unfortunately, who get caught into this machine and this behavior that's not talked enough about.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I think it is escapism. And I know, obviously, my sister's a heroin addict, and it's escapism. It's masking her, it's masking something else. And I think you get into such a way of life that you are stuck in this hamster wheel. And it more or less becomes worse to get out of the hamster wheel than to stay in it. And I think addiction, I think it's miserable. It doesn't matter if you're a celebrity or not. I think it is an absolutely miserable, horrible place to be. And I think that's also why we see a lot more suicides, we see a lot of overdoses, because you feel you need more and more and more to numb life. You need more to escape. And it's a horrible place to be. Absolutely, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. But I think as a celebrity, you are enabled to take these drugs. People don't necessarily step in and get you help. Drugs are actually given to you. There's bowls of Coke or whatever. I mean, I know in my modeling career, I've been in a club, and ushered into a toilet cubicle, and there's been lines put out for me. And I've never touched drugs because of my sister. And also I know I've got an addictive personality. But what I'm saying is it's readily available, and it's more or less celebrated in certain lines of work, let's just say. And I think the hamster wheel, once you're in it, it's very, very difficult to get out, extremely difficult. And you more or less have to change everything about you, everything about your life. And I think you more or less have to leave the celebrity world behind. I mean, I know a lot of celebrities that have had drug issues. They probably have, a lot of them have moved away from Hollywood. They kind of live out in a ranch somewhere. And when they're doing a film, they join the film, but they don't actually embrace the Hollywood lifestyle or the whole celebrity thing. And I think it's miserable. Addictions are miserable. And I think there is often chance of young death, chance of overdosing, depression and taking your own life. It all goes hand in hand with addiction.
Well, I feel like we've cheered up everybody watching.
We have.
From buying a potential plane because of it being hacked, to every government being corrupt, to the entire celebrities. Wow, Happy New Year, everybody! This was fun.
Just when you think it couldn't get any worse.
Find something to drink or a drug to take now. I mean, on a serious note, I do think we all kind of fill voids. And, from what I understand, even with addiction tendencies or an actual addiction, it's very hard to overcome it. And usually, from the best of my knowledge from, pop psychology, you replace the behavior with something else. So instead of something negative, it'd be something more beneficial, which could be prayer, it could be meditation, it could be, whatever works, for you. So I don't think really necessarily, I think genetics can play a role in it. I think some people have more of a tendency. Some people may take things more to an extreme than other people, but I think we're all, constantly searching. Life is a journey to grow, to be fulfilled. And maybe if you do have, the world applauding you, but you don't feel good about yourself or that you're not good enough, then you question, well, what else is there? And, that's maybe why they tune out. Who knows? But I'm glad, that Kat does not think I'm scum like George Santos. So thank you for that. And I'm glad that beautiful Eugenia also joined us today. And I'm glad all of you guys watched. Hopefully you're not depressed. And if you are, watch a serial killer on Netflix. But make sure they don't get the proceeds, because Eugenia won't be happy if they don't get the proceeds or the victims get the
The victims.
proceeds. That's my great closing note. Any final thoughts, ladies?
No, I just had a great time today. I think we've chatted some really meaningful stuff, and it's been eye-opening.
Yeah, I think sometimes you have to dive deep, you know what I mean? It's like not always on the surface, and things, they're deep, and it's important to talk about it, talk about mental health and everything else. It's important to address it. So it was a great episode.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought about a lot of the topics. If I had read about the mayor, I just would have been like, nah, whatever. But actually, when you think about it and you're made to think about it, like you've made us think, Sean, you just think, wow, what the F, And it is
in my life. I look around and I'm like, what the F? So yes, I'm there often.
So it's actually really good to actually think about something in depth, because I think in modern society, we just take everything in, but we let it just swim over us like a wave in the ocean. And we don't necessarily digest it and actually appreciate it and think about it and then question it. And I think it's so good to do that. So thank you for that, Sean.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Kat. Thank you, Eugenia. Thank you, everybody who's watching. We appreciate you. And see you next time. Thanks, everybody. Aw, we got a kiss from Eugenia.